Welcome back to Blame It on Marketing. We're going to be talking about LinkedIn conspiracy theories.
I'm Corey. I'm a growth marketer, and because I have like an addictive personality, I ended up using LinkedIn more than I should.
I'm Ash. I'm a marketing manager. Yeah, I spent about 4 years at LinkedIn. Same as Corey, you can't escape LinkedIn. We had one creator who was constantly coming to us and saying, "You're shadow banning me. You're shadow banning me." It's normally a sure sign that LinkedIn hasn't wanted to reward them with the top voice badge because they know that they're part of a pod.
I check someone who has 200,000 followers. They don't have the top voice, and we've been told that they are an engagement pod bunny, but they get all of the benefits, all of the financial benefits, all of the reach benefits.
Right. I think they want to make as much money as possible from companies. B2B is huge, right? You spend like thousands on things like HubSpot, and they're like, why can't we have some of that cash?
I'm being that dick that's feeding the algorithm and playing the game because I want our page to get traction. Well, hi everybody, and welcome back to Blame It on Marketing with Emma and Ruta. And today we're going to be talking about LinkedIn conspiracy theories, of which there are many.
Mm-hmm.
We are joined by two excellent guests to be having this conversation with. So Corey and Ash, over to you. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Corey. I work at Synthesia. I'm a growth marketer. I've been in this field for about 6-7 years now, I think. I always lose track of time. COVID happened and then I forgot. But I've recently been deleting all my social media. And because I have like an addictive personality as opposed to a platform problem, I ended up using LinkedIn more than I should. I like just essentially substitute all my social media use for LinkedIn, like a really sad person. And so that's why I'm here, because I use LinkedIn. First thing I do in the morning is log in. It's sad. It's really sad.
Hi everyone, I'm Ash. I also work at Synthesia, influencer marketing manager here. LinkedIn plays a very big part for our influencer marketing avenues. A lot of our focus is on those corporate clients, so LinkedIn lends itself really well for that sort of content. So I'm constantly on the platform, kind of trying to find what creators are going to work for us. I've been working in the social media industry landscape for around 10-11 years now. I've done everything from paid social, influencer marketing. I've done talent management for a little bit, so trying to see kind of like both sides of the spectrum. And yeah, I spent about 4 years prior to Synthesia at just under 4 years at LinkedIn. So I wanted to have a break from the platform, and then I've joined Synthesia and probably spend more time on the platform than I did when I worked there. So yeah, same as Corey, you can't escape LinkedIn. It's everywhere.
More time talking about it too.
Yeah, exactly.
We're sorry about that. So before we dig into the topic itself, can we have some deepest, darkest marketing confession? So it could be a fuck up or something you didn't know or something you found out and was like, oh my God, what have I been doing my whole life?
Did you want to go first, Ash?
No, you go.
I think that my fundamental marketing confession is I have no idea most basics of SEO. I don't know. It's terrible. It's really bad. I try to get into it and then I just glaze over and sort of fall asleep. I almost think like we're talking about like LinkedIn algorithms and stuff. SEO is just the same, except there's more spreadsheets. I don't know if people use spreadsheets to sort of themselves that they're doing it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
You do. You use
I think no. I think they use the spreadsheets to make us feel like it's really more technical than it actually is.
It's not real, is it? It's fake.
I'm not saying it's fake.
No.
It's definitely not fake. It is real, but the spreadsheet dashboard palaver is
It's not
to
as
make
like,
it feel more technical, I think. I'm with you.
like smoke and mirrors as they make it out, I think. There can be some difficult stuff, but for the most part, it's not that hard.
I really do respect the people who can get into it though and keep track of everything in a spreadsheet, because I can't. I'm just like, oh, I need to let it flow, you know?
Love that. Ash?
Yeah, I'd say I've got quite a big mess up that I always go back to, and it kind of worked out well, but it was also quite traumatic at the time. So I just started my role at Mediacom, which is a kind of social agency, I guess, and I was working on the PlayStation account doing paid social. We just brought in this mass editing tool where you could basically target multiple countries, and all you do is kind of change the language setting, and we were spending quite significant amounts to kind of advertise some new game releases. And all you literally do is you go and you say for Germany, put the language in DE, and then for Denmark, you put the language in DK, for example. I had Denmark with the language of DE, so we spent a massive chunk of money targeting Danish speakers in German, and yet went home, didn't think anything of it, coming in the morning and was like, this is really weird. Like, why is the engagement really poor, and why are we not getting much engagement? Why have we spent so much money and it's not really doing anything? To then realize I'd completely put in the wrong language. So yeah, there was quite a stern disciplinary. I had a lot of stress. It was like my first major role, so it was just like, oh my god, I'm going to lose my job and it's going to be traumatic. But yeah, the ads were definitely bad, and it was a bit of a slap on the wrist. So that scarred me, and it also made me be more diligent throughout my career. So maybe it was a good thing.
We all have those moments, don't we? I think where we're like, oh, fucked it up. Now I know. Double check.
Now I will always check.
Yeah. Oh, good confessions, guys. So let's get into LinkedIn conspiracies. So let's start off with talking about why we would be discussing this. What are your theories on why we're talking about the theories?
I think we're all on the internet too much, probably.
Yeah.
That's the main problem.
Yeah. We're all incredibly bored, I think. No. I think LinkedIn is like, it's filling a need. It's filling a niche and a need that didn't exist before. I think people used to be on Twitter. Obviously, everyone's abandoning Twitter. Or if they have a Twitter account still, they find it like totally useless because of bots and, far right accounts and so on and so forth. And it's just like not a nice place to be. And so that sort of like professional segment of marketers, salespeople, and so on and so forth, they're actually looking for another platform, and nothing really fits too well. I guess Reddit kind of does, but it's more anonymous, right? So, they're looking for a place where they can sort of discuss a lot of work-related things that they previously would have done on Twitter, and they can now do that on LinkedIn. And I think so. It's a growing platform. I have a sort of, I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory. I guess it's more prediction that LinkedIn is to a certain extent going to replace Twitter.
Actually, with like the news feature side of things, and like the promoted side of things, and like individuals being promoted, I can totally see how like some of those features are pushing towards what Twitter used to be used for. Not necessarily what it used to be, but what it was used for.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn also is, we used to have a lot of conversation about this when I was there as well, is like, it seems like it's a lower barrier to entry to become a creator as such. So a lot of these people that create content on LinkedIn don't necessarily see themselves as a creator. If you look at something like YouTube or TikTok, to really like double down and start creating content, maybe there's a lot of barriers to entry. You've got to think like, what's my niche? How am I going to start creating videos? It's maybe a bit cringeworthy to start with. Whereas on LinkedIn, you can post about your job and it can almost naturally spiral into you becoming a creator. And we used to run these sessions where we'd train people on how to better use LinkedIn, how to solidify yourself as a creator. And I think no one on those calls would identify as a creator. Whereas back when I worked at YouTube years ago, if people would have 10, 15,000 subscribers, they would see themselves as a creator and identify that. So I think that lower barrier to entry makes everyone feel like, oh, I can go on LinkedIn and start doing some posts and start creating content. And I think people feel like they're more open to do that because you could sort of hide behind the fact of that it's a professional platform. I'm posting on behalf of my company or my business or whatever. And then naturally, I think that makes the platform kind of grow and develop a bit more alongside the things like Corey was saying, that people are looking for other platforms. And it does, in a sense, I'd say, have a slightly nicer audience. I think because people know they're representing their business or their brand, and it's also not anonymous. It's very difficult to have that negative side. We definitely do still see it, but less so.
We certainly do see a few. I think that's one of the things that I find strange about it, because I think since we started this podcast, probably every season, at least once a season, I feel like I've said LinkedIn has replaced Twitter because people have moved over, and we all know what happened. We don't need to go over the history of it, do we? But I do worry that people don't remember that it's not anonymous, because you see some people and you just think, I don't know. I feel like they're just not thought that through. I mean, I don't know if you guys see as much of it as we do. I think we probably see quite a lot of it because it's what we see tends to be quite a lot of misogyny, which is not great. Not great. So with that, first conspiracy number one, engagement pods. Do we think LinkedIn care? Are they actually going to do anything about them, do we think? And what do you think of them in general, like when people are clearly part of one? What happens to you when you see that?
I think it's definitely on the radar of LinkedIn, and at least when I was there, midway through, it became a real big topic for us, constantly talking about. What I will say is it is quite hard to manage and suppress in a way from a LinkedIn standpoint. And there are some creators that have very obviously been involved in pods and kind of developing content specifically for engagement pods. And one way that you can kind of tell is that if someone is extremely big on the platform, has tons and tons of engagement, and it looks like they're a really strong content creator, but for some reason they don't have that top voice badge, then that's normally a sure sign that LinkedIn hasn't wanted to reward them with the top voice badge because they know that they're part of a pod.
Interesting.
I'm
now going to be like
them.
furiously
go and do
checking
some
people.
hunting. So there are ways in which that I guess you can try and do that. But like I said, it is very difficult for LinkedIn to say, look, you're a pod. Because also it's very difficult to prove that. And I think what LinkedIn were trying to do was really understand, right, how can we empower creators that aren't part of pods? How can we invite them into, we have these like 6-week, 3-week cohorts where we train creators on how to develop a niche, how to develop an audience, how to post consistently, and almost try and block out the noise. Because what I will say is, on the face of it, the content and the engagement looks great, but it's the same people engaging with the same content. So as much as, you might have 1,000 likes, it's the same 1,000 people from the WhatsApp chat engaging with that content. So it's not worth comparing to that. You really want to just compare to yourself and your own growth. So there are ways in which that they try and do it in the most natural way. But in terms of like flicking a switch and saying, you're a pod, you're banned, you're not, I don't think anything like that will happen. But they definitely do care, and they're trying to navigate it in the best way they can, I would say.
So what does that look like? Do they manually flag if a profile isn't top profile worthy? Like, is there another secret hierarchy they have, or like,
so top voices is invite only, right? So you can't apply to that. You have to be invited. It's all chosen manually by a team internally. So there's no like they hit certain criteria, because you have some people that have 2,000 followers with low engagement. And the reason why it's called it used to be called the influencer badge. So it was celebrities and CEOs that would have the badge. It got changed to top voice to reward people that are top voices in their field. So if you're an expert in AI, for example, even if you're new, you've only got say 5k followers, but you're really showcasing your expertise, you can have a top voice badge. So it's not based on numbers, but then there is some signs that show, and maybe people slip through the net, but there are some sure signs that show, okay, you're definitely in a pod, or we know firsthand that these people either own or do whatever in a pod because we've had proof from other people sharing with us. So they naturally don't get it. So definitely people will slip through the net, but in most cases it's chosen manually by a team, and they're saying, yep, you qualify for a top voice. It's also as well, if you look at those really big accounts where it's just like a carousel and it's all kind of that generic posting, that isn't really adding that value. Like what LinkedIn wants to see is people talking about own experiences. A tip that I always used to say to people is you want to be able to give advice on your LinkedIn that I couldn't find on a simple Google. So if it's just a motivational quote or a really easy tip that you could literally just get off of Pinterest, then that's not going to qualify you for a top voice. It's those people that will kind of really tell those personal stories. So there's ways in which they try and navigate it. But yeah, I imagine some people have slipped through that.
I guess I'm curious as well, because I have a conspiracy theory, but different reacts. I have a big one. I tend to see like posts that have too many laugh reacts tend to get throttled at that like later stage. So they might reach that tier of like, oh yeah, among my immediate network. But if they got too many laugh reacts, they often don't go beyond my network, if that makes any sense. And so they almost like LinkedIn restricts them to my pod. I mean, I don't have a WhatsApp group and what have you, but I have, a bunch of people.
Yeah, gang.
Just the weirdos on LinkedIn that post memes and stuff, right? And so it doesn't go beyond that. And I kind of have that theory that if it's too many laugh reacts, LinkedIn is like, I don't want this content. I don't want the funny content. We want professional content.
Yeah, I don't know if I've noticed it, but I know we spoke about it, and I feel like I'm gonna like keep an eye on it now. I think engagement pods frustrate me because at the end of the day, the creators that are in engagement pods that get big still get all of the rewards anyway. So like, as you were saying, the top voice thing, I checked someone who has 200,000 followers and they don't have the top voice, and we've been told under good authority that they are an engagement pod bunny. But they get all of the benefits, all of the financial benefits, all of the reach benefits of still having, whatever natural organic growth, whatever you want to call it, without the pods. So I think that's why it's quite frustrating. Have any of you been noticing that there's less and less new, like really big accounts, especially like for me, it's in the marketing space. I feel like people aren't like exploding anymore, and like the big accounts are kind of taking up the space. I don't know if anyone else has kind of noticed that, or if it's just me.
No, it's so true. It's like there's like a handful of, this is obviously within our context, right? Because they're the people that we're following, some commercial people and some marketing people. But yeah, there is like a handful. And the other accounts where Like Corey, your content to me is hilarious. I freaking love it. I laugh every time. I'm
We
like,
don't give you laugh reactions though.
Yeah, no,
It's only likes.
we're just gonna
Only
start
half-
commenting and likes, or we're gonna start commenting that it's insightful. But I do notice, yeah, like quite a lot of anyone who's trying to do anything newer is not getting the traction, because there's like a handful of people that we have spoken to on the podcast, for example, that we now follow, who are newer at this thing, who are not getting the traction that I think they deserve, versus the people who've got like 150,000 followers but are posting the like marketing is psychology, kill me, that shit over and over
Or like
again.
Twitter screenshots.
That's
Guys,
it. They're the
on.
people, the Twitter screenshots. Like, God.
Yeah.
Or those people. Yeah. So for me, I'm seeing that a lot. I don't know if you guys feel the same.
I think I sunk my account years ago. I think that's part of the reason. I know we're going to get into shadow banning later, but I did a bunch of, like 5 years ago, before the pandemic, I was like, right, I want to boost my LinkedIn. And I used a bunch of these automation tools. I did. I'm sorry. I did. I know it's kind of a gray area, right? And LinkedIn realized, they gave me the page. They said, you shouldn't be using automation tools from that point.
Interesting.
A bit throttled.
See, we've never had that, but I know Emma and I do use automation
We
tools.
do
so
use
I wonder
them,
if...
but we use the ones that are, I feel like they're like the accepted tools.
Yeah, with very hard limits of like 20 invites a day kind of
But
situation.
even with that, I got caught out. one time, and you get like a page that's like, we've noticed you've been using automation. This is against LinkedIn's terms of service.
Definitely a difficult one. I think also with LinkedIn as well, there's so much more noise now. It's like that if you were creating TikTok content in COVID times, your page would have blew up. Whereas if you try and grow a page now on TikTok, it's going to be next to impossible unless you really grind at it. And I think LinkedIn is in a similar vein to that. I think a few years ago, and we saw it firsthand, we had people that come on and maybe their content wasn't as great, but they really benefited from that like early boom of content. And now they've got the followers, they can be a bit more free in their content. Maybe it's not as strong. And then you see those people that are really creating that strong content, and it does take a lot longer to really develop that audience around it. So I definitely think it is more difficult. And yeah, with the automation piece, there are definitely some companies out there that I guess are more accepted than others. But yeah, I know that there's been issues in the past with people.
Could you name the companies? Could you whitelist the companies? Do you know?
So I actually don't know. That's something that we was never told. So we were like, because people would ask me like, can I use? I think Shield is one that would come up a lot, and there's other ones that people would say. And I was like, look, genuinely, I don't know. We're kind of just told that if you can create your own content, please do so. I think a big thing was scheduling content. So that's why they brought in the scheduling feature. So they try and keep everything native and in the platform.
That's really interesting. I find that given that, like it's not just mainly businesses posting on LinkedIn, obviously, but like content scheduling and editing and all of those things are like very much in the normal content creation remit. So to like penalize people for like scheduling content, it blows my mind.
You
like
think
that
happens? You really think that happens?
Well, that's why they brought in their own scheduling tools, right? At some point, like it's fine now, you schedule through whatever, but like I saw MC put up a post about how she thinks that her videos that are recorded directly in the platform on her phone are outperforming anything she edits and then uploads onto LinkedIn. And I just, if that is true, if it's not just a one-off like thing, I find that so bizarre, because that's just not how people create content.
I think there's a learning curve for LinkedIn as a platform. So like what I would say is that when we have these conversations about being a content creator on LinkedIn, that is still really new for LinkedIn as a platform. So like our team were put together, the creator management team, when I was there, were put together about just over 4 years ago, because they noticed people were creating content, and everyone in that team was like ex Instagram, ex TikTok, ex YouTube, everyone that's kind of been in the creator space, and we were kind of working in reverse. So where these other platforms are like creator first and everything is off the mind of creators, LinkedIn for so long had been a recruitment platform and like a digital CV in a sense. And then our creator team come on and we were like, look, we need people to be able to schedule content, we need people to be able to talk about series. Another thing we spoke about a lot of the time was, on YouTube, you can get like playlists, so you can have like episodic content. Can that be a feature that comes in on LinkedIn? So like we're almost working in reverse, but then everyone was comparing us to say, well, when I create my content on Instagram, I can schedule, I can highlight things, I can do all this stuff. Why doesn't LinkedIn do that? And it's like, because LinkedIn are only 4 years into their creator journey, even though the platform's 19, 20 years old, the creator part is still so new. So I think that's something that goes against them. And I think maybe LinkedIn as a platform should have been more vocal on that, to say like, look, we're still learning, we want to hear from you. They'd test features and remove them. And I think that should have been more forthcoming around it. So there are definitely ways that they could have navigated better. But I think that's why you see these things where it's like, to us, it seems obvious, like, why wouldn't you do that? But it's because the seniors for so long hadn't seen LinkedIn as that sort of platform. And like our team, who are super new in the business, was saying, this is what the creators want, this is what they need to do. But there's like 16 layers before it gets to the decision maker to actually say yay or nay. So
and you think about some of the other functionality that LinkedIn has that is so old, like the recruitment, the job section of LinkedIn is donkeys old, right? So like, I can imagine for a lot of people, maybe that is where the primary function of LinkedIn kind of is, that job hunting space, or even the posting. Like, we've gone through years and years without like people even posting, really.
I think
just
it doesn't help
using
that
it when you're looking for a job.
Marketers, right? Like, we're all,
that too.
Like, we're in a bubble of like thinking about content and creating content and all of those things.
But I do find that difficult, because that bit about the fact that, like, we are, the primary use, I think, probably for the paid parts of LinkedIn are gonna be B2B businesses, surely, right? It makes sense. So that's the primary use of the paid bits. And yet we find it the most difficult to get traction on LinkedIn. And it's like, well, if we would probably spend more money if we could see some traction.
So I did some link investigating, can we call it that? It was quite hard to do, because obviously the LinkedIn investor updates, where you can kind of figure out what companies are trying to do, are all mashed in with Microsoft now. So I was like control Fing LinkedIn really, really hard, and then gave up and got ChatGPT to do it. But so a lot of their reports still focus, in terms of like the revenue, it's from advertisement. Like, that is where LinkedIn makes revenue, whether it's job advertisement or content advertisement. And obviously they've been developing that, because you can now advertise as a person on behalf of a company. So like, they're opening up that world. But we always have this argument of like, okay, if company posts in general are kind of a little bit deprioritized, maybe because they were originally boring, and that's fine, but when you post good content, you kind of need to see like the effect of the organic reach before you are willing to invest. So if the jury will allow, I will bring some evidence to the court today. And I was running an experiment in the lead up to this podcast recording, and basically what I did is I picked out some of the video content on the Blame It On Marketing page, which is a company page in terms of like LinkedIn structure, and that content did okay. Like, it was fine. It was video content. It's the stuff that we always post about the podcast. But I put some budget behind it, and that content had an average click-through rate of like 6%. And bear in mind, I didn't put much money on it, because it's my cash. But like, it did really well. It got tons and tons of clicks. It got tons of engagement and impressions to the page. So clearly the marketing audience I'm going after is interested in the content that we're making. But if it's just on our LinkedIn page, LinkedIn is like, there, whatever, just pay for it.
Yeah. I think it makes sense, right? I think they want to make as much money as possible from companies. B2B is huge, right? You spend like thousands on things like HubSpot, and they're like, why can't we have some of that cash? I think that's the case. But also, like, one of the reasons I think they deprioritize company posting a bit is because they want more employee content on the platform. And so I know that at Synthesia, for example, we do a lot of, hey, post about this, share this, comment on this. We do our own engagement reporting, right, for companies. Whether that's our company announcement, or whether that's, our CEO's post, or maybe our CTO's post, and so on and so forth, right? And of course, we all like each other's posts just randomly in the feed. And I think that's what they want, because they want more people to use the platform. You talked about before how it was just a job platform, right? That people only go on there once every year, or 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years when they're looking for another job. So it was very, very small audience constantly on the platform. And I think that's changing now. And obviously if people's personal posts are rewarded more, they're going to post more, they're going to be on the platform more, they're going to be seeing ads more, they're going to consume ads more. And then you can leave the sort of company stuff for a almost different purpose, right? I think that's sort of what you're saying. So you're also seeing the illusion of which is the weird one of, I don't think it really exists on any other social media platform, over your personal life and your work life, your relationship to work. So
Yeah.
your personal profile almost becomes an extension of your job.
Yeah.
Recruiters used
It
to have
does.
this. They used to have to delete their LinkedIn account and get a new one when they join a new company because it was their contact book. You're almost seeing that with normal. Like I sometimes struggle with this. Like I'm so like I want to keep it away from the corporate because it's my profile, right? Like it's not Corey Johnson at Synthesia. It's more just Corey Johnson, and I work at Synthesia.
Anything else for anything else? I know we were going to talk about shadow banning, but since we're in the realm of paid, can we talk about video just a little bit? Because even today, I had several ads from different, like the CMO of LinkedIn. I think it was a sponsored ad, and I had another one about how LinkedIn is all about video. Video is the best thing on earth. This is what you should be doing. And then obviously, I think a lot of people are finding that video is not performing how it performed a couple of months ago. So, Ash, do you have any insider insights on this?
Yeah, I think video is like a real big priority for LinkedIn from kind of two parts. One, that point that I was making earlier where they're kind of working in reverse and the creator was saying, we want more video, we want it to work more. So naturally they tried to bring in the video feed that was like the immersive kind of like TikTok, Instagram, Reel style feed that they had on mobile. They tried to push people to create more video. And I think because of that, we saw an initial like peak in engagement because more people were creating video. There were more like internally, we were really pushing that to our creators, so more people were primed to consume video. I think what we noticed is that there was a shift in like user behavior, and I think whenever these new tools come in, right, it has to not only be like a new tool and it's like it's going to work straight away. You have to train the audience as well to consume that. So people weren't coming to LinkedIn to consume video. So we had really good video content on there, but people still weren't consuming it. They still come to LinkedIn for newsletters. They still come to LinkedIn for image carousels. They still come to LinkedIn for written posts. So there's this real long process of like, right, we need more people to create video. And I think we ticked that box and we had a lot of creators creating video, but there wasn't that user behavior there. So it's like, how can we marry the two? And I think that takes a bit of time. And I think within that, we'd always tell people, look, if you've been creating content, you've been posting every day, don't commit to just changing everything and posting video. Maybe do 1 per week or 2 per week and start to train your audience to want to receive video from you. And also still think about it the same way that you would with a post. You've got your 5 seconds at the start of the video. That's your hook. You've got your middle key takeaways and you've got your calls to action at the end. So I think also we've had people that had never created video before now creating video, and then they almost forget the methodology behind it. So there were so many things within that. And I think to LinkedIn's defense, in a way, when these new features come in, everyone wants it to work instantly. They want to say like, videos here, I want it to take off and I want it to boom. And I think it really does take a long time to really grow and develop that. And I think by the time it would start to pick up, people say, you know what, this isn't working, I'm going to stop and go back to my old written posts, understandably, because that gets more engagement. But then it makes it very hard to keep investing in a format when people stop using it. So I think there's always this point of like juggling around.
Chicken
like
and egg, isn't it? Like,
it is.
Let's
And
develop it so people use it. And then, but if people aren't using it, we
Exactly.
can't develop it.
Also goes back to like a core marketing principle, which is like, where does your audience actually consume content? So if you're marketers, you probably are on LinkedIn and you probably are consuming content. But like Ruta and I have worked for a lot of HR tech companies. That group of people, HR people, they have profiles, but they're not necessarily prolific LinkedIn users. So if you're creating content for that group on LinkedIn and expecting it to gain traction, it's unlikely. So it's almost like you've got to kind of go back to that thought process as well as the purpose of the video content in the first place. And again, like all good marketing, it's always kind of darkest before the dawn, isn't it? Like nothing. And then all of a sudden
we just keep posting videos, Emma? Is that our strategy? We're just it's been 2 years now. But
just keep going.
I kid.
Well,
because fine, but
because I think especially like for us in particular, our audience is it is marketing. We have a podcast that we record video for. That's the output of our content. Like, why would we not post video? Like, it does irritate me because obviously I do a lot of the social for Blame It on Marketing, and I do really terrible things. This will lead us into our shadow banning conversation, I think, guys, nicely. I'm teeing us up, which is that, obviously we all of a sudden spot something is performing better on LinkedIn than other stuff. One of the things that's sort of driving me a bit crazy is the things like all of a sudden carousels performing really well. People, obviously this has always been a problem, but people posting the cringy selfies and the like stuff that's got nothing, the post has got nothing to do with the selfie. And so obviously I'm being that dick that's feeding the algorithm and playing the game because I want our page to get traction. And I feel like what might have happened to Blame on Marketing, and this is obviously Ruta's done some digging into this, is that somewhere along the line we may have been shadow banned, or that's our theory.
I don't know if it's like a shadow ban, like we're on the no list, but I feel like maybe we're
not
just
on the no.
On the no one cares list,
No one, or we don't think this content is quality enough.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe it's just because we always post video. Who the fuck knows? I think I've got a theory about why carousels work, by the way, because I was looking through our content and I spotted a post that had like 50% click through and I was like, what the fuck? It's because when there's a carousel, like it's information page by page, right? So you get an insane amount of clicks and click through.
Yeah, that's true.
So it makes sense that then if the algorithm is for some reason being like, oh, we like clicks, we like click-throughs, okay, cool, carousels to the top because they naturally get clicks,
right?
Because it's a page-by-page situation.
You don't think it's because like LinkedIn has decided this week we're going to prioritize carousels? It's just because the way the metrics are set up that carousels rise to the top?
Yeah, I don't think the engineering department has enough engineers to change the algo every week.
Yeah. But like,
is what I'm going to say.
You're right, because it was the same thing a couple of years ago with polls. Like polls
lots of clicks.
Lots of clicks.
Loads of clicks.
Right? Because you have to click on it to see the results. So of course, And everyone was like, why are they prioritizing polls? And now I guess they've deprioritized polls a little.
Maybe it's like carousels are getting lots of views because of the click thing in our algorithm. How can we now make that more fair? Let's go fix it later. Maybe. I don't fucking know how
so many
works.
theories. So what do we think about the shadow banning? Do we think Blame It on Marketing's been shadow banned? We do post some spicy content, which LinkedIn may not like, and there are swear words, which was again my theory, one of my theories.
I guess, Ash, we could ask you, like, do shadow bans exist? Like, do they?
Yeah.
So it's always a heartbreaker, but I'm going to say no.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I've got a really good
That's fine.
proof case as to why this is. So shadow banning was by far, I'd say that and can I get the top voice badge were the two like main questions I had when I was a creator manager. And I'm talking like 3 or 4 times a day from different people. It'd be one of those 2 questions. And with LinkedIn shadow banning, right, the best way to think about it is that they don't go through and like suppress reach for people naturally because they want more people to post, they want more people to do on the platform and more people will use it. The best way to think about it is you'll either be banned for going against terms of service consistently or not. That's the best black and white way to look at it. And a real good showcase of this is that we had one creator who was constantly coming to us and saying, you're shadow banning me, I'm doing all of this content, and the content was okay, it wasn't anything groundbreaking, it was okay, constantly kind of telling us kind of in email, I'm not getting reach, LinkedIn is suppressing us, we say we're not, and it's going back and forth forever. Eventually he'd had enough and he wrote this really long post talking terribly about LinkedIn and how everyone should leave the platform and never use it again or whatever. That post went obscenely viral and it got
and LinkedIn would have probably not been promoting that.
Yeah.
There's 100% reason that we would suppress that post, not the one where you're talking about career advice.
Yeah.
So I think that just goes to show that sometimes it does come down to like people engage with that content, and it's like looking back at that point. And again, it's a really brutal way, but what we'd say to people, and this isn't always in most cases, but we say if you're finding that consistently you're doing the same thing and it's not working, then you have to start to change things, but don't change everything at once. Play around with your hooks, play around with your style, but do things differently so you can see what has that impact. And then I guess a second point to that is that company pages are always going to perform worse than personal pages. We've done loads of tests with like a CEO doing a post and then the company page doing pretty much a similar post, and the CEO's content would just way outperform it because people naturally connect with people. I think you have those anomalies where it's like a Monzo that do quite well.
Yeah.
Page, you got your Ryanairs on other things, and it's very comedic, very that kind of style orientated. But then it goes back to that point. If you look at, say, Monzo's content, it's like very Gen Z relatable, but it doesn't really align with them being a bank.
Yeah.
A lot of companies or marketing pages or whatever want to be able to showcase the content they're working on and adding value. And I think that's always going to be difficult. So yeah, I think that's the answer to that question in that I know.
So I just need to be better.
We're just not
work
good
a bit
enough.
harder.
Work a bit harder, yeah.
Should we go
Okay,
even
I'm
more
alright with
like
that.
dramatic?
Content, guys. That's it.
Okay, all right.
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, do we think actually, going back to that sort of like, I don't think, and this is maybe a conspiracy theory, I don't think LinkedIn has like a tradition, like not a traditional, it's the opposite of traditional, a sort of algorithmic for you style viral boosting. I think it's almost just like traditional virality. I don't know. I'd like to know your thoughts on this actually. Is it, is it because, it's getting liked by people, 3 people see it, 3 people like that, 9 people see it. It's just traditional sort of like algorithmic virality as opposed to, I don't know, this shows up because a certain segment has interacted with it and there's a million data points that make this go to the top. Or what is virality, I suppose, on LinkedIn? Like, what do you see, Ash? Is it like, do they have like a For You page TikTok style algorithm for content, or is it more simple?
Yeah, it was never confirmed exactly, but I don't think it's like, because I think TikTok, it's like they test it with 200, and if in that 200 you get certain,
exactly,
it pushes to more and more and more. I don't think it's like that on LinkedIn, and I think that's also why you can see some people do a post and it will get like 10 likes, and then 2 weeks later it will suddenly pop off because the right person has liked it and it's appeared in their feed. So I do think it is slightly different. I think they're trying to move it again, and this is just me thinking, I've got no confirmation on this, but I think they are trying to move it more to like your traditional social media type of engagement. When I was working for LinkedIn, my whole feed was like personal branded content. It was a lot of this like real heavy focus on LinkedIn marketing, all of this stuff, because that's the segments I focused on. That's what I worked at. Like now at Synthesia, I'm looking, for example, we're looking to work with some creators based in Japan, for example. So a lot of my content is completely different in that feed. And I think I'm noticing already it adapts a lot more quickly to what I'm searching and engaging with already. And it didn't do that before. So I don't see much of that personal branding, that like LinkedIn heavy content that I used to see. So I do think they're trying to move in that way, but whether it's there already, I don't think so. But I think, that's where they want to get to, that like more traditional, this is how a post can go viral. We'll test it with a pool of people. If they like it, we'll push it further. But I'm not sure if it's there yet.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I assume like in terms of the engineering side of things, like they're basically playing catch up, right? Like they never started out as a TikTok or a Facebook. So all those years and years and years of dev on the other side of things is going to be hard to catch up to unless you steal people, which, I'm sure they're doing.
I'm sure you can. Yeah.
I'm sure you can, and I'm sure they're doing it. So we've spoken about engagement pod, shadow banning. We've touched on pay to play. We've done video. Is there any other conspiracy theories that we want to talk about? There's one which is interesting, which is like creator monetization, and I feel like Ash, you might be an interesting person to talk to about that. And what we mean by that is, obviously there's popular creators on LinkedIn that are getting sponsored by companies to create content, but because of the fashion of the reach of company pages, typically we've had it under good authority that now influencers are also having to have their content promoted on LinkedIn through ads for it to have the maximal effect. So I don't know if anyone has anything to say about that.
Yes, pay LinkedIn to promote my memes. That's not at all late stage capitalist. That's just that's normal behavior. Of course you would do.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think when I first joined LinkedIn, I think one of the things that creators always would discuss is like monetization, right? So if I've got a big following on YouTube, not only do I get ad revenue from my videos, I also can get sponsored by brands. And obviously YouTube don't take a cut of that sponsorship, but they take a cut of the ad revenue. So I think with LinkedIn, they're now to a point where it's like, and we're definitely seeing it more. Obviously, my whole role at Synthesia is sponsoring creators to promote new features and things that we're working on. So it's looking at that, and it's about it. Definitely, the approach to that is definitely different to when we look at creators on YouTube, for example, because it is slightly different with engagement. You always kind of have to expect a slight drop in that, and I think that comes down to a few different things. If it's on YouTube, typically it's like a 60-second ad read as part of a normal video creator be watching. With LinkedIn, it's almost like a dedicated post every single time. And again, if you see it on other platforms, if it's dedicated to the brand, there's always going to be, typically, unless it's a really cool activation, a slight dip in performance. So you kind of expect that as an influencer marketer. But I think LinkedIn, I've always taken the stance of like, look, they'll never take a cut of paid posts or content, because naturally that will allow creators to feel more valued on the platform. They think, look, if I grow my following, I can start to monetize this. But then also I personally think, and again, I don't know, I don't think there'd be too keen for people to start putting paid money behind posts. I think it's more so on the onus of the brands. So like when we book talent, we can pay extra for boosting rights, right? So we can pay extra and boost their content ourselves. It's not something that we do, but you can do that. But I'm not sure if LinkedIn would be too keen on promoting that as such. I guess it gives them a slight cut of the pie, but it's not something that I've seen them do. Another thing to bear in mind is that this is all like super, super new. If you'd asked me last year, I would have struggled to pick out 2 or 3 creators that are doing like paid posts, whereas now we're seeing it a lot more. So again, it's still fairly new and things might change, but as it stands right now, I think LinkedIn are like, yeah, they're keen to see more brands working with creators, but what their full stance on it is right now, I'm not too sure.
Anyone, obviously, Corey, you started this off by saying, you had a wild take on where you think the future of LinkedIn's going. Anyone else want to take a punt at what you think will happen? Like, let's even just say in the next 12 months, what you'd like, or maybe what you'd like to see happen.
I'd like to see the APIs being opened.
Yes.
And they are.
Yeah.
They are in the EU, right? They have to in the EU release some data.
Yeah, but it's not very,
all of it.
there's not a lot of data, and also there's very tight T's and C's on how you can use it, so you kind of can't build stuff around it too liberally.
Yeah. Because I know about a year ago at Synthesia, we tried to build essentially a video CV builder, and you would link your LinkedIn profile, it would scrape it, and then this is hypothetically how it would work, right? And then it would make a little like,
They do
"Hi,
not do
I'm
that right now."
Corey," like,
Not allowed.
but it was like actually getting any of that data from LinkedIn as opposed to doing some gray area scraping with ChatGPT was impossible, and that's cost a fortune. The API was limited so much to like EU customers only. Well, how are we going to do this then?
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be great. At least I can probably speak for most influencer marketers, like trying to find creators on LinkedIn is so manual and tough. I think if they open the APIs and you could really like set your criteria, you see it all the time with these third-party tools that say we can do it for every other social platform apart from LinkedIn.
Not LinkedIn, yeah.
From our process, that's like 90% of our influence marketing, so it's very manual. So that would be great. I also think it'd be good to see, at the point we touched on earlier, that more stereotypical feed, that more like For You page style content. And I think it allows people to really start to like hone in on their audience and their niche specifically and grow in that area. I think at the moment there's too many like up for debates in terms of what does what and how to really like nail content. So I think being able to like simplify it in a sense will naturally be able to allow people to play a part in content. And also I think we're in this point where a lot of the good content is the same style, right? I think if they go back to this more like traditional style feed in all different niches, whether it's construction, AI, marketing, whatever, they'll be all slightly different, but it works for that feed specifically rather than like a one size fits all. I think naturally that's better for creativity. So that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah. I would like to see more creator options in LinkedIn, because I think so. For example, we produced a podcast. The podcast is aimed at marketers. It'd be great if we could host the podcast in LinkedIn somehow. If we could create content natively in LinkedIn somehow,
so
like we do with
go
TikTok.
And click off and
exactly
go find it for themselves.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Because I mean, where it's relevant, right? Because we're not trying to turn it into TikTok, but
TikTok for B2B. B2B SaaS.
B2B, yeah. Ooh, so sexy.
I'm sure someone has attempted to build that and that didn't work out very well.
Didn't
but
work.
they got a lot of funding and spent a lot of money. I'm sure they have. Like,
Yeah, there was a company. What was it called? No, you're right. That actually was tried. Like a LinkedIn competitor, like your job, but actually sexy. Like like and here's some cool graphics, and we're millennial and Gen Z. Here's a pastel palette and stuff like that. But it didn't work. Yep. What was it called?
Corey, any wishes for LinkedIn?
I just want to be able to curate my feed a bit better. I cannot stand seeing Stephen Bartlett reposts all the time. I'm sorry. I know Ash, like we talked about Stephen Bartlett before. He's a great guy for his audience. That's fine. I'm not interested whatsoever in what he posts.
You know who I'm really happy? Like, I don't see any posts off anymore. Simon Sinek.
Right.
No, because I see him and Stephen Bartlett together.
Oh my God, I've
them
blocked
together
so hard on my account. I do not see either of them ever. It's amazing. I love it.
I judiciously now use the block feature. I'll just go block.
Yeah. Report block.
But yeah, the thing is, like, why is it report block? And sometimes, like, I tried to block the person who reached out like 50 times in the space of a minute saying, do you want link sharing? And it asked me to fill out a report on why they were harassing me. And I'm like, I don't want to fill out a report. I just want to block them. Like, they're not harassing me. They're just doing a pitch, right? Like,
yeah.
no, that was bizarre.
So, do we have time for marketing gossip? We do. We've got a
I feel
couple of
like,
minutes.
yeah.
Or
we-
was that
we
our
can do it.
okay? We're going to do it.
Was
'cause
that our
this is
gossip? I
separate.
don't know. No, let's do gossip.
Well, you guys tell us. So at the end, we like to talk about marketing gossip. So either something that is happening in marketing at the moment that you either love or hate.
I could start with hate. I've been thinking about this.
Mm.
I call it the lazy piece of shit marketing, and I despise it. I don't know if you get these YouTube ads for motion calendar. I actually used it back in the day. Does anyone get motion calendar ads? Yes. It's essentially this AI scheduling tool, but the whole premise of the ads is like, oh, you're always in bed, you lazy piece of shit. Like, you get nothing done. Oh my God, you haven't even gone to the gym. You haven't even cooked a meal. Oh my God, you're useless. And you see this on Shorts, and he's like, yeah, I know I'm useless. That's why I'm on Shorts. Like, I'm trying to distract myself a little bit, like
Stop making me feel
just
bad.
doing some numbing.
I already know I'm a lazy piece of shit, like come on. And so I hate that because it's everywhere now. Everyone's doing it. Like, why aren't you productive? Why can't you get out of bed? And I'm like, stop it. Even therapy.
There's also the like empathetic, therapy side of those that I actually see. It's like, oh, have you struggled to be motivated lately? Here's some supplements that are gonna help you.
Or else, like, this is ADHD brain. This is, and of course, like, people have ADHD, people are neurodivergent, people have tons and tons of different ways of thinking and so on and so forth. But every single app now seems to try and convince you that you are ADHD, that you have this trait, or you're manic depressive, or you're borderline, or whatever. And it's like, hello, like, this is just an ad. Like, maybe save that for therapy.
Yeah, but also you're targeting this at probably Gen Z and millennials, and we're like, we know.
Yeah.
Thanks. We're
You can't get a
acutely aware.
diagnosis. Really not going to be helpful.
What's it for you? What do you love or hate?
Yes, I guess it's a tough one. I think for me, like, I'm like big onto like TikTok. I like to close off at the end of the day, have my brain rotting time, as much as it's probably not the best thing, but I like to tell myself it's probably not good for me, but I like to just do my brain rot. I think it's needed after a long day. And I like how these brands, like I mentioned earlier, like your Ryanairs, this like very Gen Z heavy marketing. I don't know if you've seen that one where they'll get a boss and it's like a director of a company and all they've done is edit the time he takes a breath. And it's just, I just like,
they're very funny.
Yeah, just this like real like Gen Z marketing, like almost going against the grain of like everything you've been trained, and it's just like play on humor, play on lighthearted content, and that's what's going to get people to buy into your brand. That's something that I'm a big fan of, because I think it just takes it, like, sometimes I think, especially when you've worked in marketing for so many years, you can overanalyze all of this stuff. Like, are my hooks right? Is it the good length? Am I reaching the right audience? And then you get some Gen Z that comes in that's been working in there for 6 months, and all of their content goes viral because they're ultimately just taking the piss. And it does a lot better than what these kind of like big marketers can do. So yeah, I think that's what I'm here for. I like to see that, like, simplify your content, have fun with it, and then it should perform better.
Yeah. Agreed. I think someone made a good point of like, is it appropriate for everything and everyone? Because that seems to be like the direction we're all like straying in. But I guess we're just also making content for ourselves, which I'm okay with. This has been a really fantastic conversation. And Ash, thank you for giving us all of those insider bits of information that hopefully you also found insightful if you're listening to this. So thank you so much. Go follow Ash and Corey on LinkedIn and check out what they're doing. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.